county schools. And it was one of my teachers at Hardaway High School that inspired me to go into law. My children attend Columbus High School and Rainey McCullers School of the Arts, and I am proud that they were able to get a quality education right here in my own hometown. My family and I attend St. Thomas Episcopal Church, and I volunteer in the nursery, and my husband and I both teach children's church there. I have 25 years of legal experience. 20 of those years I have spent serving the citizens of this county as a prosecutor, and 11 of those years I've spent as your elected district attorney. Since taking office, I've worked hard making purposeful changes in the DA's office. My vision allowed me to be part of the team that imagined and then implemented the Rapid Resolution Program. And the Rapid Resolution Program is designed so that certain nonviolent offenders have a chance to resolve their cases quickly in court. Soon after we implemented that program, we had been able to decrease the inmates at the jail enough that they could close an entire wing of the jail. And since the onset of our current health crisis, the Rapid Resolution team has been working very hard, continuing to move cases. And right now, the population at the jail is the lowest it's been in over 20 years. Also in my office, we have created special teams to meet the needs of other groups. We have a team that prosecutes in juvenile court, a new team that prosecutes in recorder's court, so that the law enforcement officers and victims in those courts have prosecution that are specialized there. We also have a team that handles appeals and asset forfeiture cases, and also accountability courts. And the accountability courts, for those of you that aren't in the court system, are mental health court, veterans court, and drug court, and those courts are designed to meet the needs of those special defendants. Additionally, I've created teams in Muskogee County that prosecute a certain type of crime. So we have prosecutors and investigators that work only on violent crimes, some that work on property crimes, and some that work on drug crimes. And that not only allows those prosecutors and investigators to become specially trained in those areas and to gain extra expertise in those areas through their experience, but it also creates a relationship with law enforcement that investigate those cases. So they have a closer relationship to ask questions and to talk about their cases. In the outlying counties, I've reorganized the way that we handle the outlying counties. I'm the district attorney for 6 counties. So in addition to just Muskogee County, I also have Chattahoochee, Harris, Marion, Talbot, and Taylor counties. And in those counties, I've reorganized the assistant DAs so that each county has at least 2 prosecutors that work with that county, and no prosecutor goes to more than 2 counties. And so that allows the prosecutors to give the counties the attention that they deserve, and so that they can learn the stakeholders, the resources, the needs of those particular counties and answer those. In response to gang violence, we have the DA's office leads the local multidisciplinary team on gang violence, and we've also been awarded for our contribution to Project Safe Neighborhoods with the federal courts. My energy is evident in my accessibility to the community. I speak regularly to our organizations, including your own, about the DA's office and the judicial system, or I speak about topics that they request. If they want me to speak about something specific, I will learn more about that and make sure that I can present on that topic. I've presented to small groups, to large groups, to groups of mostly men, to groups of mostly women, to school children, to all kinds of different groups on everything from how important it is to learn to read up to human trafficking, on almost anything. And finally, I'm passionate about prosecution. You can tell I'm passionate. I've spent 20 years prosecuting for the citizens of this circuit. Since I became DA, I've increased the personnel in the DA's office by over 35%, up to 69 employees. These positions have been approved by city council and county commissioners or the state legislature, depending upon who pays them. And they're vital because we prosecute over 4,000 new cases every year in the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit. Under my leadership, the Victim Witness Assistance Program has more than tripled the number of victim advocates who serve the victims no matter what the crime. I'm honored to advocate for the rights of victims in the community where I grew up. I'm Julia Slater, and I'm asking for your vote so I can continue to serve the citizens of our circuit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm going to now mute you and unmute Mark. Okay. I want to introduce Mark Jones, who is challenging District Attorney Slater. Mark, you've got the podium, literally.
Yes, ma'am. Forum that we're doing. DA Slater for being here in attendance. My background, I'm attorney Mark Jones. Let's see. And basically, my video went out. One sec.
Yeah.
It should come back on a sec.
Okay.
Give me 1 sec. I do apologize. Okay, there we go. Still not coming. 1 sec. Let's see. That's embarrassing. Try this. Oh, start video.
There it is.
Bottom coat.
Hello. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. Attorney Mark Jones, running for district attorney, running to be the people's DA, to be your DA. My background is from Texas originally. I got to Georgia, Columbus, Georgia, as quick as I could. Came down here after going to UGA Law School. Basically, the background story there is when I was little growing up, I wanted nothing more than to be a Texas Longhorn and go to UT Law. Didn't get in. And Georgia let me in. I went to the campus. It was a great campus, Athens. I loved it. Ended up staying in Georgia after I graduated from UGA Law. While I was there, I did study under the tutelage of Alan Cook, who is a prosecutorial clinic director, was for 20, 30 years. He taught me everything I know about being a prosecutor. Clerked for Judge Frank Jordan, who was a Superior Court judge. Clerked for him for 3 years from 2007 to 2010. And assisted the judge with all jury trials, wrote draft jury trial charges, wrote memos for the judge in deciding motions to suppress, wrote memos for the judge in deciding motions for new trial, that sort of thing, and did that. And then from there, went into private practice here locally with the law office of Gary Bruce. And basically the good guys, ran with them for about 3 years, prosecuted all sorts of basically tort claims, civil claims. Got experience as a civil prosecutor and recovered millions and millions of dollars from my clients there. Took the leap of faith and went out on my own about 7 years ago and started my own private practice. And basically there I've done two different types of practices. One is criminal defense. I'm undefeated in jury trials against DA Slater and her staff. That means 48 jurors have voted for me in my presentation of the case over her staff's presentation of the case. I think that speaks volumes. I'm a skilled and experienced trial lawyer and basically have been doing that. I've also tried civil cases and my record there is 4-1. I've taken on white collar criminals. Last year I took on Allstate Insurance Company. I saw a pattern of practice of Allstate routinely lowballing my clients as well as other attorneys' clients. I had the courage to take them on in front of the jury in Gwinnett County, as well as in Muskogee County. I won every single time against them, and I recovered substantially more than the adjusters offered on the claims for my clients. So that's a little bit about my background and my qualifications. I'm a product of school busing. When I was in middle school, I went to a predominantly minority school district in Fort Worth, Texas. So I know the importance of discrimination. I try not to discriminate in my life. And one of the things I want to talk about why I'm running is to end systematic discrimination, or at least what I believe is systematic discrimination in our criminal justice system, a la Johnny Lee Gates case. I believe that DA Slater chose to do the wrong thing in that case. I believe it is no coincidence that that case is now apparently resolving with an Alford plea, is my understanding. But, you know, I think DA Slater had a chance to make a choice on that case and whether or not she was going to go with Judge John Allen, who said that Johnny Lee Gates needed a new trial. She did not choose to do that. And she, through her actions, allowed Johnny Lee Gates to remain incarcerated, even though there was both DNA evidence countering the fact that he needed a new trial, suggesting he needed a new trial. And there was also evidence of systematic racial discrimination using derogatory terms against jurors. Make no mistake, Julia Slater is a product of that line. William Smith begot Doug Pullen, who begot Greg Conger, who begot Julia Slater. I would like to end that line and install a new people's DA who's going to treat the seat more for the people. as far as the other priorities that I have on my platform would be to end the jail backlog. I can appreciate that there's some sort of rapid resolution program. I think we need to go ahead and do a formal pretrial diversion program. I do not believe the rapid resolution has been effective because we are still at about 900 to 1,000 people in the jail consistently. And it's been that way for the last 3 or 4 years, even with rapid resolution. I would rather do a formal pretrial diversion program. I've seen this program installed in Alabama, particularly Lee County, as well as Russell County. They manage their dockets better than here, and I would like to use some of the principles that they have there, as well as in other jurisdictions in Georgia, such as Cobb County, for instance. They have a formal pretrial diversion. Right now, you don't have that. What you'll have is administrative issues with, they'll say, oh, we're handling this case administratively. I want to formalize the process for nonviolent offenses, non-serious cases, and install that program. I think it'll be much more effective than whatever program is already in existence with the rapid resolution. That is obviously not working. And it's a significant issue.
Excuse me, Mr. Jones, just time, please.
Sure.
Okay,
let me finish.
Yeah, thank you.
You won't let me finish, ma'am?
No, I said that you said you would finish.
I had 2 more points. I just want to bring.
Well, you had 5 minutes and it's gone over. I just wanted to, I think a lot of what you're saying are in these questions. So I'm pretty sure that you will be able to address them. So anyway, thank you. Unless if you want to just wrap it up with a sentence.
Free the green. Free the green, Columbus, Georgia. Yes, ma'am.
Gotcha. Okay. So that, and I'm going to keep you unmuted because the first question I'm going to ask, these 2 questions are the ones that we sent, the Muskogee County Den sent to both candidates in advance. And so I'll let alternating people start with the answer. This first one is, and for all of these questions that I'm going to be giving you moving forward, the ones from some of the people that are here today and some people who couldn't attend, would like to keep your the answers to like 2 to 3 minutes, okay? The first one, and we'll have Mark address it first, is please, just a very basic, please state your understanding of the duties of the district attorney. Mark, go ahead, please.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Laura. Appreciate that.
Sure.
The duties of the district attorney. The duties of the district attorney are, the district attorney is the chief law enforcement officer of the state, essentially for this district. So that would be from Muskogee, Marion, Chattahoochee, Harris, Talbot, Taylor. I think that's it. Yeah, there's 6 counties. So basically they represent the state in court against defendants. And that is essentially the function of the DA, the chief law enforcement officer for the district. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Let's see. And Julia, that same question to you. What is your understanding, since you've been doing it a bit, of the duties of the district attorney?
All right, thank you. In a circuit this size, the primary duty of the district attorney is to manage the office of the district attorney. I'm essentially a managing partner of one of the largest law firms in the area. When I speak to children about what the DA does, I tell them that I'm like the principal of the school. There are teachers who teach the classes, but the principal could teach the classes, but instead make sure the teachers have what they need and help guide the teachers. And that's what I do in the DA's office. I don't carry a full caseload. My job is to make sure that my prosecutors have what they need and head them in the correct direction. I do handle some cases, but my primary job is running the office. In smaller DA's offices with fewer assistant district attorneys, the DAs do carry a larger caseload because they have fewer managerial duties with fewer assistant district attorneys and fewer staff members. I manage budgets of over $4 million. They come from 4 different sources, and I make personnel decisions for 69 employees. I write and implement policies. I meet with judges and county and city leaders, and I ensure high morale in my office. As a government agency, we are not able to offer salaries that would be competitive with private sector, and so I think that having an enjoyable workplace is very important to keep quality personnel. I have offices in 5 different locations, serving citizens in 6 counties. The DA's office handles cases in 28 different courts. We represent the state in superior, juvenile, recorders, probate, and magistrate courts. We handle criminal prosecution, civil asset forfeitures. We train and advise law enforcement officers. We handle appeals. We serve victims often long after the criminal case is closed. We handle municipal bonds and serve as legal advisors to the grand jury, not just on criminal matters, but also on board appointments and inspections. My staff represents the citizens at more than 1,600 court appearances a year in 6 counties. That's 32 court sessions a week. I certainly cannot attend all of these sessions. My primary focus is grand juries in each of the counties and jury trials as I'm able. I have highly trained, capable assistant district attorneys who handle the bulk of our caseload. My ADAs have a total of 500 years of legal experience and 400 years of prosecutorial experience in the DA's office now. The job of the DA's office is to represent the state in criminal prosecution and civil litigation, but the job of the district attorney is to manage and inspire those in the office to continue to serve our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Julia. And since I have the second question and we are flipping who answers them first, I'm going to keep you unmuted. And this next question is a little longer, but let me read it out. Many Democratic voters are concerned about police accountability. The news is riddled with stories of law enforcement personnel who have acted with undue and unnecessary force, in many cases leading to the untimely death of many people of color. Many of these officers have not been held accountable, with some district attorneys stating that these types of cases are too hard to prosecute or that they do not want to damage their relationship with law enforcement. Columbus itself dealt with a similar situation in 2004. If you are reelected, what will you do to make sure that law enforcement officers who do not follow the law are held accountable? At the same time, how do you plan to interact with the police department and other law enforcement agencies? And how do you plan on maintaining and strengthening that relationship? Because I can see the challenge in prosecuting, but also wanting to, having to keep a really good working relationship. Can you speak on that for about 2 to 3 minutes?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Sure.
I do take use of force cases very seriously. As district attorney, there are few duties more important than making sure my citizens and law enforcement officers feel safe. Since taking office, I've presented several use of force cases to your grand jury, some of them under the code section 151271, which is the code section that deals specifically with instructions for use of force review. This allows a grand jury to make a determination about the circumstances and determine whether or not criminal charges should be pursued. I've also taken cases to the grand jury under code section 17752, which governs the presentation of criminal charges of a law enforcement officer. I think it's important to take these cases to a grand jury. The grand jury is not selected as other juries are selected. No one's eliminated by an attorney because they have a suspected bias. Grand juries are selected by determining who is qualified to serve, excusing people who have extreme hardships, and then the first 23 are on the grand jury. It is one of the most random groups we have in the circuit. Because of that, it is important to use a grand jury to be the conscience of the community to review these cases, and that's what I do. To be clear, I was not the district attorney in 2004 and made no decisions on that case. I have never declined to prosecute a case on use of force because it was too difficult, nor have I ever allowed my desire to maintain a good relationship with law enforcement to impact my presentation of a use of force case. Contrarily, I have found that law enforcement officers truly want officers who cross the line to be held accountable. And prosecuting those cases only improves my relationship with law enforcement. They want them to be prosecuted if they've committed a crime. I maintain a strong relationship with law enforcement primarily by telling the truth. I try to speak to them honestly about weaknesses in the case, and I also listen to what they have to say about how my office is prosecuting. We as prosecutors must speak candidly with officers if we want to improve the quality of our cases. And we train officers in all of our counties and attend training with them when it's offered by other groups. I personally also teach a class to the Law Enforcement Academy for those that are about to be law enforcement officers on courtroom practices. I think it's important for us to understand that you can do both. You can absolutely hold officers accountable when it's appropriate and maintain a relationship with law enforcement. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. let's see. And Mark, so tell me, and I'll just kind of reiterate that last part. You probably already are ready to go, but you know, how, if you are elected, how are you going to make sure that law enforcement officers are held accountable, but also manage that relationship with your different counties' law enforcement?
First off, I appreciate the service of all law enforcement officers. Can you hear me okay? Okay. First off, I appreciate the service of all law enforcement officers in our judicial district. Appreciate y'all. I know y'all keep us safe, but I do believe that there are some bad apples out there. And I think if you look at what other district attorneys across the nation have done, particularly the DA in Philadelphia, he has a system where if an officer submits false evidence or for whatever reason, there's some sort of shadiness to them, he doesn't call them. He doesn't prosecute their cases. So if you're a cop and you're submitting false evidence, you perjure yourself, what have you, I'm not going to use you and I'm going to come after you if you hurt one of the flock. Now, with that being said, I think actions speak louder than words when it comes to DA Slater. She has not kept us safe from law enforcement officers who have harmed the community. Case in point would be the Talley case, whereby it's already been a year and she has not prosecuted the case. Jennifer Curry, the defense attorney, has already made the papers talking about she wants a trial. And that's why it's going to be different with me, is I will show up ready for court. I will show up as a trial lawyer, experienced trial lawyer who wins. I will show up ready and I will win the case for the city, for the community. I won't kick the can. I won't have defense lawyers filing motions, screaming and hollering about how long my office has taken. So I think actions speak louder than words there. And I think DA Slater talks a good talk, but I think her actions just don't bear out what she's saying. I want to work closely with law enforcement. I want to do ride-alongs with them. I want to train with them. I want to lift weights with them at their facilities. I want to get to know them. But I also want them to know that just because you wear a badge, you can't commit crime. And there are some bad apples out there that shouldn't be police officers. That's true. I agree with that. And I want to prosecute them. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mark. And I'm going to keep you unmuted because now that we've gotten through those two questions, some of these questions will be just for one of the candidates, some will be for both. And I wish I could say I was so super organized, but I've got my pages and my notes, and we're gonna, the first one though is for you from an attendee. And it is, have you ever worked in prosecution or law enforcement?
Yes. I've done civil prosecution. I've already explained my record there. 4-1 took on the white collar criminals with Allstate, who were basically harming the community by making, so they'd have a situation where maybe the person had $10,000 in medical bills and they'd offer $5,000, stuff like that. It's not a fair business practice, so I went after them. But I also worked under the Third Year Practice Act as a juvenile prosecutor, was successful there, and was trained in the prosecutorial clinic at the University of Georgia. Unlike my opponent, who went to an out-of-state school, I went to a state school here, trained under one of the best prosecutors in the state of Georgia. And I think it's unfair to assume that I wouldn't be able to learn anything that could be taught. I know they have training sessions for prosecutors with the state. I'll be a darn fine prosecutor for you. I'll get the convictions. I win in court. And DA Slater has not tried a case to jury in nearly 6 years, is my understanding. So, you know, I'm going to show up to court for sure.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And next, sorry, the next one is for Julia, and it is, have you received any awards related to your position?
Oh, yes, I have. I think the most notable one for me is I received a national award for my litigation on a case that we were able that I was able to help prosecute. And I received that award in Washington, D.C. about a year ago. I was very proud of that. I've also received awards within the city. I'm in the Women's Hall of Fame and a Woman of Distinction and a Woman of Courage from different organizations in Columbus. And I'm proud to say that members of my staff have also received national and statewide awards for their prosecution.
Great, thank you. Okay, the next question is going to be for both of you, both Mark and Julia. And it was sent in by Tyson Begley, who is the chair of the Public Safety Advisory Commission. And he has a little background and then questions for both of you. And I think, Julia, you're unmuted. You're first. The background is, as chair of the Public Safety Advisory Commission, we consistently discuss the backlog in the jail. It's not only a moral issue, as innocent people spend longer in jail, but also a financial issue, as local government covers the expenses of those who should be in state prison. While we understand there is also a delay after the formal charging of a crime, we feel the first step to address the backlog is by dealing with the pre-accusation or pre-indictment backlog. We admire the requirements espoused by other states and even judicial circuits in Georgia to put a district requirement, district requirement that cases in review by the district attorney's office must have an accusation or indictment filed within 90 or 180 days. With that in mind, we would like the candidates running for district attorney to address these two questions. First is, would you support a requirement that defendants are either accused or indicted within 90 or 100 days of their arrest? And would you support a public report that shows the daily counts of inmates who have not been accused or indicted after 90 days? Okay, Julia, that's to you.
All right, thank you. I would say that in answer to the first question as to whether or not I would support something that would make it so that we had to indict cases within 90 or 180 days, I would say I could not support that under our current conditions, and I'll explain why in a minute. And whether or not there would be a public report, I think that I would support a public report about the cases that are not accused or indicted. You have to understand that some of the cases that are in the jail are there because they are extremely complicated. Really, most of the ones that have long delays are very serious cases. And in those cases, we also often have follow-up investigation and a lot of forensic science and a lot of forensic tests. Juries are demanding and defense attorneys are demanding more and more forensic evidence in order for us to be able to prove our cases. And that has put more and more strain on the crime labs in those positions. And so we end up in a situation where we are waiting for follow-up testing, we're waiting for initial testing, we're waiting for follow-up testing. It's unfair for the defendant or the victim for us to rush in and file formal charges before we're able to get those reports. But because of budget cuts and higher demands, we are unable to get those reports in a timely manner. And so that's what I mean by our current situation. If we could get those crime lab reports back from the crime lab in a timely manner, I think it would be a completely different situation. But, and I'm not talking just, we're talking DNA tests, we're talking cell phone records, we're talking about a lot of different things, but because of the pressure on the GBI to get these things done, we just cannot get them in a timely manner. Some cases also you have to understand are delayed, not because of complicated forensic evidence, but because of things that happen that sometimes we can't even share with the public. And that's, you were asking about a public list. The difficulty with a public list is it wouldn't say, for instance, if we had a defendant with mental health issues. Well, that's not something we can share with the public if a defendant has mental health issues, and yet that's going to put a strain on our ability to proceed with the case quickly. A victim may live in another state. The resolution itself may be complicated. Restitution may be complicated. So these things can cause nonviolent cases to delay as well. And dealing with the volume of body cams and dash cams that people have come to expect in this day and age, it is voluminous. We can have a case with 20, 30 dash cams and body cams on one case that we have to download and get to defense. And so those things take time. If we're able to resolve the forensic and the technical issues, I think we can move things more quickly, but the cases are there for a reason.
Okay, cool. I understand that. Let me mute you and unmute Mark. Julia. Sorry, I wish they could put I wish I knew how to put the two of you close together. We've got more than 57 people here listening, which I'm very excited about. Okay, got it switched. Mark, you are unmuted. So just to reiterate, would you support a requirement that defendants are either accused or indicted within 90 or 180 days of their arrest? And would you support a public report that shows the daily count of inmates who have not been accused or indicted after 90 days?
I would support both measures. I think as Justice Brandeis said, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Transparency is the best disinfectant to a government that's not doing its job. That's what we have here. For whatever reason, the DA's office is not getting the indictments written. Writing an indictment is not a difficult process. They have state-based programs that draft it basically for them as a form. I use forms every day in my private practice. It's not that hard to write an indictment. And for whatever reason, well, I know the reason. It's poor leadership in the DA's office. They're not getting written. And I can't sit by idly anymore at these docket calls, these trial dockets where the DAs are not showing up ready. They're not fighting for you. They're not telling the victims, murder victims, brutally murdered people's families, their stories are not being told under the current DA. And that's just a fact of life. That's just the truth. And I can't sit by, I feel like to use an analogy, it's like a frog in a boiling, like frog in water that's boiling. And it will just sit there till it boils. It won't jump out. We have to jump out of this mess. We have to start trying the cases to the trial jurors. I think we've all been to court on jury duty summonses where nothing happens and people just sit there for hours and hours and lose wages. They have to get childcare and the DAs are not showing up ready. And to me, if you have a string of not guilties and not guilties and not guilties from these experienced defense lawyers, if I'm the DA, where's the place I'm gonna be if my assistants are losing? I'm gonna be in court by their side, coaching them, getting the convictions. So I think the backlog can be solved by the system itself. Absolutely would I support a law that holds me as, if I'm elected, that holds me as a DA accountable to do my job. Absolutely, I would support that. And I think her response saying that she wouldn't shows exactly what I'm talking about. Especially with COVID, we have got to get a DA in there who's gonna make a change, who's gonna speed up the process, who's gonna get the cases moving. Because it costs the county $50,000 a day to house these many people. And my promise to you would be within 12 months of being elected, I will reduce the jail population to 700, which is about a 30% reduction. 600, I mean, if we're cutting it down, I'll get it lower because just that savings from 900 people in jail to 700 would save the county of Muskogee about $4 million a year. So this is big math that we're talking about, and it matters who your DA is. Results matter. I will end the backlog in Muskogee County. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Mark. And I'm going to leave you unmuted. We have a couple of individual questions here. Someone talked about something that you had put on your website. And it's quoted you as, I guess it's I've been to your website, but I don't remember this exactly. If I'm elected DA, I promise you there will be no more not guilty verdicts on serious violent felonies. I don't care which defense lawyer they have on their team. We won't lose in court anymore. The DA's office should never lose a case, ever. How can you guarantee a 100% conviction rate?
Because I'm the best. And I have a winning record. I'm the only candidate who 48 trial jurors have voted for me over Julia Slater, okay? I'm gonna try cases that are serious. Let me tell you something. The last case I tried to a jury in Muskogee County brought by Julia Slater's office was about a stolen bicycle, and it turned out to be my client's bike, okay? That is what they're wasting their time on, our valuable time on, the community's time on, when we have 87, I think it is, people in the jail charged with murder. So my goal will be to be an efficient people's DA. I mean, obviously there's a little bit of puffery there. I can't guarantee what some juror is going to do in the future, but I will lay down my life for this community to hold accountable those who harm the flock. I will. And she's not doing it right now. And that's just how it is. So I firmly believe that you, as a citizen of Muskogee County, Georgia, and the Chattahoochee Judicial Circuit, all the satellite counties, you are entitled to the best DA in the state of Georgia. You are entitled to the best district attorney staff in the state of Georgia. There are 30 DAs, assistant DAs, and 1 DA, and they are not getting it done right now. I will get it done for the county and for the circuit. Yes, ma'am. And I'll win in court too.
Thank you. Okay, and Julia, the next question is for you. And that is, someone asks you to please discuss the staffing of the DA's office and your case assignment.
Sure.
Which is a little bit what we just talked about. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I can go in a different direction. The DA's office has 4 major areas of staffing. We have assistant district attorneys. Obviously, those are attorneys who have been to law school and are practicing. Those are the ones that have the 400 years of prosecutorial experience at this point. We have investigators. And some people get confused with the word investigator. They're not investigators with the police department. Their job is to help prepare these cases for formal charging and for trial. And we also have administrative assistants who, of course, help keep up with the paperwork of the district attorney's office. And then we have victim advocates. And victim advocates is that area where we've been able to triple our numbers within the last 11 years to help our victims. And victim advocates have a job. They're kind of translators. They'll go to court with the victim, and when things happen in court that are foreign to the victim, they can help explain them. They literally hold the hands of the victim during court. They make sure the victims have what they need. And very importantly, they help the victims through not just the judicial process, but all of the paperwork that comes with some of the restitution issues and some of the victim compensation, which is a completely different thing, 2 different things. But they help them with all the paperwork of those, and they stick with these victims for years and sometimes decades. We might have a case that is decades old, but our victim advocates are still serving those victims, still putting them in a bus and driving them across the state to parole hearings or whatever it is that it takes for us to serve the victims. And I think the second half of that question was about organizing in counties or how we prosecute cases. I can't remember.
Was, sorry.
That's okay. I'm sorry, I forgot.
No, it's okay. It's case assignment. So the staffing and case assignment.
Okay, so cases are assigned. We've got within our 29 assistant district attorneys, not everybody's a trial attorney. As I mentioned earlier, we've got some of the recorders, we've got someone in recorder's court, we've got juvenile court, we've got rapid resolution, and all they do is guilty pleas. They don't do trials. We've got the group that does the appeals, accountability courts, and asset forfeitures. They don't do trials in the sense they do hearings. But within the trial section, we have 7 judges on the criminal bench right now, and so each of the attorneys is assigned within a judge to a type of crime. So if you are, this particular assistant DA, you may get all of the violent crimes that are assigned to this judge, or you may get, as a property crimes assistant DA, the property crimes that are assigned to these 2 judges. So it's all based on the judges for whom they work, and then what kind of crime it is that is the defendant is being accused of committing, and that's how we do our assignments. Within the outlying counties, which is a little different, I've got 3 assistant DAs in Harris County, 1 with more experience that takes the serious cases, and then 2 with less experience that takes more simple cases. And then the other state assistant DAs that travel the other counties are all very experienced and split their caseload equitably between the attorneys in those counties.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next question was sent in also, and it's for both of you. And Julia, you can, since in our little system here, you can go first.
Sure.
It says, as you may know, Georgia does not have a hate crime law protecting LGBTQ people. Trans women of color are murdered at an astronomical rate in this country, and hate crimes against LGBTQ have skyrocketed during the Trump administration. Obviously, the DA cannot create new laws, but what can be done to make sure that LGBTQ people have justice in the Chattahoochee Valley if they are victims of a hate crime? And do you support adding protections for LGBTQ people in the existing Georgia hate crime law?
But in the existing, okay, Georgia doesn't have a hate crime law at this point.
Yeah,
right.
I was reading that, and as I know I'm seeing a lot of those articles recently that we're trying to get that.
Right. I really concentrate on doing what I should do, which is prosecute crimes. And the way that we can better protect all of our citizens, including our special citizens, is to prosecute cases completely blind to who the victim is and who the defendant is, and make sure that justice is served by what happened. If that case has been made worse by the situation, if there's any kind of hate to even speak it into existence, torture, or something that has happened because of the situation, that would be something that would be legally considered to make us take that case more, to prosecute it more vigilantly if there was torture in a case. But we absolutely prosecute cases every day where we defend the rights of people in our circuit that have different sexual preferences, different religions, different colors of skin, everybody. We protect all of the citizens of the county, and absolutely we protect our citizens.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And hold on one second. Mark, where'd you go? There you are, sorry.
Hey.
Okay, you got it. Mark, that question to you. Do you support adding protections for LGBTQ people and into hate crime law? And what can be done to make sure that there is more justice for them as victims of a hate crime?
Well, let me tell you, I'm the only candidate who has actually defended LGBTQ clients. I have one now where it wasn't the DA, it was a solicitor general. One of the assistant solicitor generals told my client, since you want to be a man, I'm going to prosecute you like a man. And I went to her privately and I told her, that doesn't sound like you, but obviously that's not acceptable. And if you want a trial, we will have a trial on that issue as far as what you said to my client. But what I would do as far as hate crimes go would be you're going to have to go under the federal hate crime statute. That's what I think should be done in Ahmaud Arbery's case. I think we need to get the feds in there. I think we need to prosecute that as a hate crime. And I think we need to I think as DA, I would work more closely with Mel Hyde and other federal investigators. If a hate crime did occur in this community or something I thought was a hate crime, absolutely, I would make that referral. Absolutely, I would talk to Mel or whoever I needed to talk to, call up whoever I needed to talk to as the people's DA, as a representative, to make sure that that crime was prosecuted. I think you could also look at some of the gang statutes. If the crime was indeed a hate crime, oftentimes there's multiple participants. I think you saw that in the Ahmaud Arbery case where there's 3 individuals. I think they should be prosecuted as a gang. There are sentencing enhancements under state law that I would be willing to use and more open-minded in terms of more creative with prosecutions to make sure we get people that use hate to commit crimes. Absolutely. We don't want people hurting anyone for a reason of hate. And we certainly don't want people targeting protected minority classes under federal law. No, ma'am. So I'm a strong supporter of that community. Absolutely.
Thank you. And I'm going to keep you unmuted. The next question is for you. And it says, from your videos, you indicate that you believe the Columbus Police Department is violating people's rights. What message are you sending to law enforcement, and do you have evidence of this? And would not a DA need to obtain evidence?
I think you're talking about what's been, there's a stop and frisk video I did where I was out planting a campaign sign and encountered Jug and KT. They've been blasted on Facebook, called Hood Rat, called all sorts of names, derogatory names, just for appearing in the video with me. But basically the situation in that video was Jug disclosed to me that he was stop and frisked. I do not support stop and frisk as a blanket policy, but I do support the current case law for reasonable suspicion in certain situations. I'm a big fan of pro-warrant, so I would hopefully be able to work closely with law enforcement just to make sure that they're up on their case law. I would love to do training sessions, just make sure, hey, you can't lift the clothing, things of that nature. Sue the city or something. He was just complaining to me, just sort of a general grievance. He was saying, yeah, man, I routinely get pulled over and stop and frisked. And, one time I felt like they went too far. He said that they lifted up his shirt and looked at his junk. So, that's unacceptable, obviously. He didn't want to sue the city or anything. And I still communicate with Jug about, his life and what he's doing. And I think I made a friend there. So I think that goes back to me and just being a more active DA. Sorry, my video went out. I do apologize about that. So I think that just goes back to being a more active DA in the situation. The video was somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also serious in that officers need to know certain boundaries. And I just don't think they're getting that from the current DA. Now, with that being said, I totally support law enforcement. They keep us safe. But I do think that they need to be well-versed in the case law, just like the DA needs to be well-versed in the case law on the stop and frisk, on developments. It is a controversial policy. And as DA, I would write detailed memos to whatever law enforcement officer wanted to listen about, this is the DA's official stance on stop and frisk for what it's worth. Whether or not they choose to follow that advice is between them and the police chief or the sheriff, you know, so.
Okay, thank you. All right, down to Julia. Next question is for you, Julia, and we are at 7:53. So we have just a couple more brief questions, but I think we are going to be able to end by just around 8 o'clock. Someone asked, let's see, why did you decide to become an attorney?
I decided to go into law when I was at Hardaway High School, and I had a debate coach. Her name was Mrs. Weber. I still remember her. And I had her for social studies, but I was on the debate team. And I remember how interesting it was to me in debate that you would take up both sides of an issue. And I don't know if anybody here has ever debated, but you are on the affirmative at one point, you know, and you're arguing affirmative in the morning, and 2 hours later, you're on the negative and you have to argue the negative of the case. And so I was really intrigued by the ability to see both sides of a case, and then, you know, to see one side and argue one side and then flip over and see the other side and argue the other side. And the more I got into debate, the more I realized that law might be something I was interested in. And she encouraged me to do that. I went to Stevens College. Actually, I got a BFA in musical theater at Stevens College, but by the end of my 4 years at Stevens, I knew that I wanted to, that I was back. I wanted to go to law school again. I started wanting to go to law school, and then I really wasn't sure about the political science classes and those kinds of things. And then I ended up going to law school. I went to Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia, and got my law degree there. And then came straight back here. I clerked for then Chief Judge Mullins Wisnett at the time, and then got a job with the DA's office soon after that.
Great, thank you very much. I'm going to, just because of the time, I'm going to ask both of the candidates, sorry, I unmuted someone here. Okay, ask both of the candidates for their closing statements, just 2 minutes. And I know I didn't really specify that in our instructions, but I know that a lot of things have been said here during this forum, and I wanted to give you all a chance to kind of wrap your contribution and your input up. So I'm going to have Mark do that first, and you are unmuted. Thank you, Mark. 2 to 3 minutes, please.
Yes, ma'am. Just sort of rehashing what we talked about earlier. I want to be the people's DA, and basically that's just a different platform. It's a different way of running the district attorney's office that focus more on efficiency and on ending certain practices that have been prevalent in criminal justice system. It's a criminal justice reform measure, which our community desperately needs. This community was once known as Death Valley for the number of people, minority people, that were killed through the death penalty here. And I want to end systematic discrimination. I think if you really take a look at what DA Slater did in the Johnny Lee Gates case, you'll see that, you know, Judge John Allen's word wasn't good enough for her. And it's only now that she has come around and there's some sort of Alford plea happening. I think, frankly, because I ran for office. You know, I don't know that she wouldn't have fought that more. But a unanimous Supreme Court said that, yes, there was systematic racial discrimination in that case. And DA Slater chose to fight that issue. She chose to come down on the side of hiding the notes that had derogatory racial terms in them that proved the discrimination. She chose to hide them, and she chose to fight that all the way to the Supreme Court and keep Johnny Lee Gates in prison. That's systematic discrimination that will not happen on my watch. I'm going to end the jail backlog, and I'm going to save the county at least $4 million, Muskogee County. If you are in the satellite counties, we need your help. We are bleeding out in our budget. We need your help to end the backlog in the jail, and your vote in the Democratic primary, June 9th, 2020, will help do that. Cases are simply not being tried. We do not have a coach in there for the trial jurors. The DA has not tried a case to trial jury in nearly 6 years. That's unacceptable. And just not doing the paperwork is unacceptable. You can't have a 5-year person sitting 5 years in the jail, 3 to 5 years in jail waiting on paperwork. That's just not acceptable for a DA. I'm sorry. I don't care how many assistants you got working for you. You need to come down from on high and draft that paperwork if it's taken that long, ma'am. Pretrial diversion needs to be formalized. If you want to call it rapid resolution, whatever, it's not working right now, and we need to formalize that. Right now, it's an ad hoc system that I've seen, depending on the cases. So we're going to make that a formal system. and we're going to streamline the cases. Non-serious felonies are going to go there. And then finally, I want to be a supporter of Free the Green. I think that that is the way the country will ultimately be moving. I think that's going to be highly beneficial for Georgia, and I want to be a voice in the DA's office for that platform. I'm Mark Jones. I'm running for district attorney. I'm humbly, respectfully asking for your vote in the Democratic primary, June 9th, 2020. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark. And let me also thank your sign language interpreter. Really appreciate you being there, and I apologize for not recognizing you beforehand. But
this is Miss Anna.
Well, I may need to get her contact information because I think that that's a really a good addition to making sure that everybody can access this information. So thank you. And I'm going to mute you and then go to Julia for your closing statements. You are unmuted.
Okay, thank you. I just want to reiterate that I am the candidate that has the vision and the passion and the experience to continue to serve our citizens. I have 25 years of experience in the criminal justice system, but importantly, 20 of those years have been serving the public as a prosecutor. I have the best ADAs in the state. I'm proud of every one of them. They do a great job every day in the courtroom. And I want to talk to you a little bit about a DA's office winning all their cases. And I'll tell you honestly, and it's going to sound strange, that if I have an assistant DA who is winning 100% of their cases, I know something, I'm concerned. I'm concerned because that means they're doing at least one and maybe two things. They are either taking their very best cases that they know they can't lose and they're giving unreasonably high recommendations on them, asking for the maximum number of years so that they can try that case they know they can win and put a notch in their belt, which is not what we should be doing. Or they're taking the cases that are questionable, where maybe we have a victim whose rights need to be represented in court, but they're not sure they can win, and they're dismissing those and getting rid of those and not protecting not only that victim, but the other citizens who deserve to be protected from that defendant. And so if you're losing some and winning some, you're probably picking the right cases to try. And so although it sounds great to have a 100% success rate, really, anybody can have that if they wanted to in the DA's office by dismissing the cases that aren't 100% and offering way too high of offers on the ones that they're 100% sure that they could win. I have been active in our community for years, and I am active in the DA's office implementing changes that have made our office more efficient and increased our ability to prosecute crimes and to represent victims. I want to continue to make positive changes in the DA's office, but in order to do that, I need your vote. And so I'm asking you to vote Slater for DA so I can continue to make changes in the DA's office and I can continue to serve the citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Julia and Mark, I think that was a great forum. I learned a lot. I hope our attendees have. And that's about it. I just want to thank you for caring enough about our process to come and listen to our candidates tonight, and check out the Muskogee County Dems Facebook page for our forums for next week, because all of these races are important. It's important to get Democrats in all of the places that we can to kind of change the way our country is going. And so I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everyone. And this recording will be up on our Facebook page, on our YouTube page tomorrow. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.